Okay, next we have a ton of drama. I don't even want to go too deep into it. I just want to kind of give you the basic overview. But essentially, the Department of War, previously known as the Department of Defense, hella stupid name, but obviously the US is rabid for war. Nothing new for us since like the 40s. But basically, the Department of War was telling Anthropic that they need to give them full access to the system. And I guess Anthropic was kind of withholding it. There's still some debate on whether or not the Department of War was actually trying to have Anthropic like train a model specifically for like war, kind of like doing what Palantir does in a way, where it's kind of like assisting law enforcement and military with executing their missions. And it was leaked essentially that when they went to Venezuela to capture Maduro, they did use Claude to help plan that mission. So that's pretty interesting. But essentially, Anthropic said that we're not going to comply with you, we're not interested. And then the Department of War came back and said that they've actually classified Anthropic now as a supply chain risk, which is some law that was made in place in like the 50s, I believe, for usually foreign companies where there was a risk of them obstructing the supply chain to hurt the US. But it's the first time ever, apparently, that it's been used on an American company. And now Anthropic and the government are really on edge. And essentially, OpenAI just swooped in really quickly and they said, hey, we're happy to support the Department of War. I don't really have too much take on this. I know a lot of people in San Francisco and Anthropic employees are really happy with how Anthropic's handled this. Kind of that whole like hackers, anti establishment kind of vibe, which is cool because that did go away for a while in the tech industry. It was very much like becoming establishment, and it still very is much establishment. But, some of these values, I guess, are still tried and true in the engineering and software development industry. But what's so fascinating is that now on Saturday, February 28th, we've seen that the US launched a bunch of strikes on Iran. And essentially, that's why there seems to have been such a big deadline of whether or not Anthropic was going to let them use Claude for this military stuff, is because of this attack that they were essentially going to start. So we'll have to see how all this develops. We already had AI driven war with drones and stuff. So when people talk about like robots fighting wars, like we've already had that for 10 plus years. So it's really nothing new. Obviously, it's more advanced now and possibly like with more hallucinations. That's where it gets a bit scary. But we won't go too deep into this. Just very fascinating. And you can check it out more if you're interested.